Well, welcome everyone. I'm Paul Stein, the Executive Director of Schools for Children, who are the presenters of the Different Choices 2021 event. For those of you who were at our last presentation, I apologize for repeating some of this, but I want to give folks who are new an overview. Schools for Children is a Massachusetts nonprofit that runs a variety of school programs, including 3 schools for children who have experienced anxiety, depression, trauma, and other mental health issues, often compounded by learning disabilities. Now, we're so glad you've chosen to attend the pilot series of Different Choices. This initiative seeks to offer increased support for students and their families as they make the transition to college or career training or post-high school experiences of all kinds. And it's also to provide a platform for the many amazing organizations that are committed to increasing opportunities and advancing greater equity in education. Now, it may appear to families that many services just disappear when students graduate and leave the world of IEPs and high school support staff. At the same time, programs may feel they are operating in a vacuum. Different Choices will shine a light on what is available to students and their families. For us, this is just the beginning. We hope to continue to expand this effort and become a larger annual event. So tell us what you want to see next time. What topics are most valuable to you? You can tell us in a survey we'll send shortly after this program. And please visit our website, differentchoices.org, to find resources mentioned in this session, as well as lots of other support. Thank you all for joining us. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to introduce you to Denise Moorhead, who's tonight's program manager. Denise, I can't actually see you, so I hope that you can wave or something.
Nina is going to be the manager for this particular event.
Okay, the script's been changed, but we can flex.
Well,
okay.
We got a little bit flexible.
All right,
So that,
okay. All right, Nina, thank you then. Also, is Raymond with us? To help with
he is.
Okay,
yes.
Just checking that.
Raymond and Salma are our tech support, and I am running this, but Denise is here as well, as is Mary. So we're all here.
Okay, thanks. So let's get to it. Tonight's presentation is how to choose a college when you have a disability. Let's hear what wisdom and insight this extraordinary panel has to share with us. And let me introduce you to our moderator, Rob Franek, editor-in-chief of the Princeton Review. So let's get started.
All right, Paul, thank you for the kind introduction, and we're so excited to be here. Again, folks, all welcome. I know that we have all become de facto Zoom experts over the last year and a half plus of time, webinar experts as well across platform. Again, as Paul was saying, each and every one of you are welcome, students, parents, and counselors, and I suspect that many of our attendees are representative of those 3 groups. Again, my name is Rob Franek. I am editor-in-chief at the Princeton Review. I've been at the Princeton Review a little over 22 years. I'm responsible for content at Princeton Review, but as my dear colleagues and now my dear colleagues and panelists know, I spend most of the academic year on the road talking to students and parents and counselors about this issue of finding fit in colleges. So I could not be more delighted to be with you tonight. I'm really looking forward to the insight, opinion, and very good, clear, and good counsel that we have coming from our 6 panelists. Folks, truth be told, as Paul had already alluded to, tonight's panel and the several days that you'll be spending with each other, or we'll all be spending with each other over the next couple of days, has been many months in the making. This panel discussion will be well worth your time. I am convinced with mathematical certainty that you will exit with a deeper and a better understanding of these issues around college admission, learning differences, learning disability, mental health challenges, and so on. And that will be our commitment, each and every one of the panelists that we have with us tonight. Our commitment to you is to talk about college in its component parts specifically for this audience, all in the service of finding a school that's actually going to be the best fit for us, understanding what those issues of fit mean for us, coming to the table with whatever issues we may have, talking about very specific support services, as Paul already alluded to, that you might already be having in high school. What can we expect on the college, on the undergraduate side of the fence? How do we navigate those? And how do we incorporate those things into our research of finding a school that's going to be the best fit for us? Many of our panelists volleyed questions our way. This last one is so important, making sure that we talk about what the activities are going to be like for students outside the classroom as well, complementing what they're learning in the classroom, but then all social life as well. What can we expect in college from the beginning to the end of that experience? So folks, again, I'm convinced that we will have a great and lively discussion with us tonight. I'm going to turn the mic over to our panelists to give a short introduction. Some of us have some slides to share as well. As I know, there are 6 panelists all together, both on the professional as well as on the student advocate side of the fence. I'll call each of your names and I'll certainly pass the mic over to you. Dr. Jones, we're going to start with you first for your intro, and then we'll move on from there.
Hi, good evening. I'm Suzanne Jones. Today I'm wearing a black dress with pink pearls and pink earrings, and I have an afro with glasses. I am currently employed at Queensborough Community College with the Students with Disabilities Office, but I'm also an adjunct professor in communications at Nassau Community College and at LaGuardia Community College. I have been working with the disabled population for over 2 years now, and I'm excited to join this panel. I work with the summer youth programs throughout the CUNY and through LaGuardia. And I'm excited to join this amazing group of people to share what I know that will help you move forward during college and after college. Because my role as job developer takes you there. It takes you through the process, but I'm also in the classroom, so I understand what's happening with my students in the classroom and out of the classroom. So welcome, and thank you, Bob.
I love this. Dr. Jones, thank you. We're so looking forward to your comments. And I so appreciate already just alluding to what students are doing upon graduation. And I know that is your deep area of expertise. So really looking forward to your comments. We'll turn the mic over to Lynne DaSilva. Lynn, good to see you tonight. Mike is yours.
Thank you for having me. Welcome everyone, and thank you for having me. My name is Lynne DaSilva. I am the director of the Arch Learning Community at Dean College. Dean is a small liberal arts college located in Franklin, Massachusetts. And we are very proud of our Arch Learning Community. The Arch program is the most comprehensive academic support program that we have at Dean College, and we service students with learning disabilities and learning challenges. I have been with Dean College for 11 years. I've served as an adjunct professor for both Arch specific and non-Arch specific courses. I have held roles as a success and career advisor, as well as an academic coach, and I look forward to our evening together.
Excellent. Lynn, so appreciate your time. I have read over your bio so many times, and I so appreciate what you're going to bring to the table, Arch program and otherwise. So grateful for your experience and your time. Courtney, Jolie, Loudmilk, we are looking to you from Boston University. Courtney, good to see you. The mic is yours, my friend.
Thanks, Rob. I'm going to follow Suzanne's lead. I really appreciated that introduction, Suzanne. I'm Courtney. As Rob said, I'm in Manchester by the Sea, which is a little north of Boston, but in Massachusetts, and work at the Center for Psychiatric Rehabilitation. I am joining you. I have my hair down and curly, and am wearing glasses, not to see, but to block out the blue light. This is a new thing for me, but if you haven't tried them, you might and might want to try them. I am an advocate. I am so grateful to be with you tonight. You know, the Center for Psychiatric Rehabilitation is housed at Boston University, so really uniquely poised on a college campus, but serving students, college students, and high school students broadly internationally. So we do a lot of collegiate resilience support I'm going to briefly share my screen with you for anyone who's tuning in and might be interested in scanning a QR code here that'll bring you straight to our website. What would involve that is on the screen is my name, Courtney Jolie Loudmilk, and a code where you would hold your phone camera up to the code here on your screen, however you're plugging in and joining us. That will bring you straight to our website to give you a little bit more if that's something of interest to you to do during our time together. The Center for Psychiatric Rehabilitation has been at Boston University for 40 years, conducting research, providing direct services to adults in the community who live with a mental health condition, and of course, disseminating the great research and programming that we have. So I'm just so interested in providing opportunity for conversation around how we support our young adult students through the transition from high school into college, and also offer the perspective of what happens when students have interruptions to college, to the collegiate experience. And I'll turn it back to you, Rob. Thanks.
Courtney, thank you so much. And again, you're doing great and good work. And I'm so looking forward to your comments and your guidance tonight. Thank you again for being here. Carol Kenlin, we are looking to you, my friend, for your introduction as well. Big fan of your work already. I'll turn the mic over to you.
Thank you, Rob. I am thrilled to be here, and I already can feel all the energy with the panelists, so it's so exciting. I'm an educational consultant based in Chestnut Hill, Mass. And my job description is to work with students who typically struggle with mild to more moderate learning, attentional issues and anxiety components. I'm seeing a lot of it nowadays, so it's exciting to be on this panel because not only are we seeing amongst people who do my job, students that do struggle with reading and writing, which is par for the course, but many more students struggling with anxiety. So the focus, this is a very important focus. Prior to being a consultant, which I've been for 12 years, I used to do neuropsychological exams. I worked at Mass General, the Institute for Learning and Development, spent time at Landmark School. My focus primarily was on complex reading issues and attentional components. And then I spent 4 years working at several private schools as the head of learning support. And now I primarily work with students looking at schools and colleges who are sometimes traditional, but many times with mild to more significant issues. So I'm delighted to be here, and I look forward to hearing from everybody else and what they're seeing in the field.
Excellent. Carol, thank you so much. And the questions that you volleyed over were spot on, and I'm hearing them from my own students. So looking forward to tackling them this evening. Folks, we have two student advocates with us tonight. And again, just delighted to have young folks with us tonight. Neelu, I'm going to look to you first for an introduction. And again, so grateful for your time.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Neelu Kamkar. I'm going to start with some personal stuff and then my professional academic. I'm 27 years old, born and raised in San Jose, California. I was diagnosed with combination ADHD at age 5, and I was very stubborn in high school and middle school and elementary school. I didn't accept accommodations. I didn't think I needed them, but I probably did. I'm a pretty untraditional student. I had a 1.6 in high school, a 1.6 GPA in high school, and then I went to community college, and ultimately I was able to transfer to the University of California of Santa Barbara. I graduated with a bachelor's in economics, and now I'm a paralegal intern at the Santa Clara County Public Defender's Office. I'm studying for the LSAT and applying to law schools for fall 2022. So if I can do it, you guys can do it.
Neelu, that's wonderful. You are a Renaissance person, clearly, and we are just delighted to have that. And I'm so appreciative of your introduction and where you are now. So again, thank you for your time, and really looking forward to your guidance tonight, as I know so many of our students are as well. Joseph Lettieri, we are looking forward to hearing from you, my friend. UVA graduate, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Thank you guys for having me. Welcome to everyone. So big thing is I have ADHD. I've had it as a kid, and there's a big misconception around it going away, or your learning difference, or whatever you have, your identity as a child, it going away as you become a young adult, and eventually adult. And I want to emphasize that that's not true. Who you are, and as you grow as a person, you're going to learn different things. But it's important to embrace your identity as you become a young adult. I think it's the first thing I wanted to highlight. Building off what Rob said, I'm a recent graduate of UVA with a degree in chemical engineering. Currently, I'm employed by a pharmaceutical company as a production associate. I help make drugs for clinical trials. It's very exciting. But I'm excited to see you all.
Joseph, I can't thank you enough for your time. If I can just ask one geeky question, because I write about colleges for a living. Did you get your current job from an internship or some sort of experiential learning opportunity at UVA, or just get it yourself?
No, it was out of the blue.
Well done. All right.
Yeah, it was a contract though. I got lucky. They called me before I was ready to graduate. So that's the thing too, is take every day by day and do your best, and things will happen.
Well said, my friend, and looking forward to your guidance and your comments throughout tonight. Folks, those are our 6 panelists. And as I said before, we are all just contagious with energy around this conversation. Just a couple of housekeeping things. I know, again, we are all experts on these virtual platforms, but unfortunately, since there are so many of us, and grateful for that, we can't have everybody talk that are attendees. So we have Nina and our full team here going to be looking at the chat throughout. We have a couple of prime the pump questions that each of our 6 panelists had volleyed my way over the last couple of days, or volleyed throughout all the panelists. There is a bead of consistency throughout those questions, and I've divided them up, just roughly speaking, between students that are questions that are appropriate for students that you might be thinking, if your students out there, parents might be thinking these questions, and then a combination of student and parent questions as well. So that's the way we're going to be dividing up tonight. Do not feel in any way that you are interrupting the flow of this conversation. If you're volleying questions our way, we want to hear from you. Again, we all know that the success of tonight will not lie on any one comment from one of our panelists, or certainly from me as moderator, but we're really hoping that this will be a conversation of the collective enlightened, all of us, every one of the attendees on our call, in our classroom tonight. Volley questions our way, we'll all see them. Nina's gonna be volleying them over for me. I will do my level best to get to all of them in the next 54 minutes of time. So we're going to be respectful of your time. This is being recorded. Our contact information is right throughout it. So folks, we're going to start with our first question. This is the biggest and a softball question, but one that came up again and again from our panelists, both professional as well as our student advocates, in thinking about finding a school that is the best fit for us. And Paul had noted this in his introductory remarks. If we're used to services on the high school level, how do we use our accommodation that we received in high school in finding a school that is the best fit for us? Can we use those criteria, or will that research give us the clear information that we're looking for to be a student of success on the college side of the fence? Folks, this didn't come from any one person, so I'm going to let anybody volley it out to us. If you raise your hand or just chime in. Carol, I saw your hand go up. Carol, let's start with you.
Great question. Of course, that's the first thing a parent's going to wonder about. There are databases that I work with and that are pretty well known within the industry that divide all the colleges into 3 groups: Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. They go by different labels, but the first is what we call services. The second would be more comprehensive, and the third would be a very comprehensive level. Most of the colleges, many of the colleges in the United States are what we call a Tier 2 level, and within that there are a lot of services. But one of the most important things when looking at a college is to understand where they fall. That is, when your son or daughter goes to that school, will they have to meet with the director of support and kind of negotiate their own services? Because we know the IEP will have stopped. Will that group be, just allowing the student to do what they need to do or not? Or will they be more involved in the process, getting to the professors, having tutoring, one-on-one support, or which would be tier 2 or tier 3, where there's extensive support given, and usually there's an extra price for that. For instance, Dean College would be tier 2. Northeastern, which is well regarded as an extraordinary school for academics, is a famous tier 2. And tier 1, there are a number of them that fall into that, maybe Trinity or whatever, but there are tiers, and that's the first thing you look at when you're looking at schools, looking at the colleges.
Carol, I so appreciate that, and I know our audience does as well. The tiering of schools 1, 2, and 3, based on the support that those students will need as documented in their IEP, or just services that they're used to on the high school level, to make sure that they are successful and persist throughout college. Lynn or Courtney, anybody else that have a comment there, or Dr. Jones or any of our student advocates? Lynn, I know you're running the program at Dean as well, and I suspect you're well steeped in this as well. Neelu,
Yeah,
I see your hand up as well. I'm going to go at, yeah. So Lynn first, and then Neelu, I'll look to you second.
I think what families need to keep in mind is that despite the fact that a 504 and IEP will end when they leave high school, if you have adequate documentation, no matter where your son or daughter attends school, legally through the American Disabilities Act, they have the right for accommodations. Some schools you need to push for it a little bit more than others, depending on the size and the type of school that you attend. But if your child, has accommodations such as taking a test in a distraction-free setting or having extra time on an exam, those accommodations should carry over into college. And contacting the Disability Services Office at a college, will start that conversation. I think another thing that families need to keep in mind is that at the college level, your student can qualify for accommodations, but colleges don't offer modifications in curriculum. So there is a difference. So a modification is something, for example, your child may get a word bank on an exam, or, the exam that your child receives may be 50 questions instead of 100 questions. So those are considered modifications. You won't find that at the college level, but you certainly should find accommodations.
I totally hear you, Lynn. And Neelu, before we get to your comments, Lynn, you had volleyed a question over that talked about the IEP, and is it guaranteed? Are those accommodations guaranteed on the college side of the fence? And I hear in your comment that there might be some accommodations that are maybe not guaranteed is the right, maybe not the right word, but
no, they're not guaranteed. But a good accessibilities program will certainly, if you have recent testing that supports it, again, it's finding the right fit, right? It's finding the college where your student's going to be supported. They should have access to it if the documentation supports that.
Totally hear it, and I appreciate that. And I think hearing that proper nomenclature around it and how a student or college-bound student or their parent could navigate it, I so appreciate that as well. Neelu, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm looking forward to your comments.
Thank you. Just one thing I would point out is, even though I didn't have accommodations in high school, while using them, the ones that these students would have in trying to navigate the ones that they need for college, I would just suggest to don't go into the process with a fixed set of expectations, because when I took classes at college that weren't the classes in high school, I needed different things. For example, when I took a very intense religious history course, I needed the whiteboard and the chalkboard to write out my thoughts. The scratch paper wasn't enough. We think about so much and try to, and we find relations between these ideas, but, I would have never have been able to predict that that's what I needed until I got into that situation.
Mhm. That's such a good point.
Yeah.
Neelu, that's so thoughtful of you. And Joe, I'm thinking about what you said earlier around, you know, who you are and who you are now as a student in grade 11, 12, let's say, and then the transition process that's probably roughly the person you're going to bring to freshman year. You know, so being in touch with and understanding, evaluating honestly as possible what you might need with Neelu's wisdom that we change over time, that even though this has always worked and I might not need it in this class or this space, let's just imagine that will change over time depending on what we're studying or the, you know, the mode or the environment. But there's something really critical to an honest assessment, and maybe inviting, you know, or the wisdom we offer students and families is inviting trusted people in your life, whether it's peers, partners, family, you know, staff and teachers in your schools, just to invite what they notice and what seems to be useful, and reflect back, you know, sort of like in a dialogic sense of what will be helpful to put into place, and strategize that way. Just kind of imagining that you're bringing yourself now. I think lots of the transition comes with a hope for something new and different, and that will be certainly in an environment that's going to change. But you and what you bring, and how you thrive in spaces that are small or large, loud or quiet, and so on and so forth, feels really important to carry forward, honestly.
Rob, what I have noticed is that at CUNY Leads, we started going to the high schools because we recognized that once students leave high school, they didn't think they needed to use their IEPs in colleges. And we have made the deliberate effort to now go out to present at colleges, at high schools now. And our office is centrally, we have all CUNY offices have a student with disabilities office all throughout CUNY. We meet every month. We talk about what's happening with CUNY. We have a Leads Online where we speak about these same issues every single month. Because especially during this pandemic, we have realized how much more services are needed more than any other time. Yeah. So now our tutors work around the clock. We have tutors, we have students who get a time and a half, we have sonogram, we have programs that are now accessible to them that weren't accessible before, because now we're learning online. That is something new. So what we have done in terms of how much we have grown, I have seen this pandemic has caused us to think a lot, to change ways that we used to do things, to realize that they're not working anymore. And now we have to position ourselves. How can we better fit, or what can we do more for these students who are now attending classes, who can't come into on the campuses to get what they need? How can we provide these services? And so I applaud everybody, all the students with disabilities, to see this, to now navigate around this new way of learning. This is new. This is getting new accommodations, because now they have to pick up the phone. It's advocacy at a different level. And I just think we're doing an amazing job in connecting with each other. You know, students now need to connect with each other. There are clubs. There are so many areas that we've become involved in at this point in time, because we must, in order to care for our students.
Yeah, Dr. Jones, we're all nodding our heads to your comments and direction, and I love this. And I tell my own students this, you know, we're not going to unlearn what we've learned over the last year and a half of time. And as both you and Courtney have said, you know, like we understand that moving forward, we have to have a kitchen cabinet of trusted people that we're going to and bring in and build that community. But I love the idea of going out to high schools and being able to have this conversations with students. Just one question on the CUNY, and I know we have some students that might not be familiar with the CUNY acronym, but City University of New York, 26 campuses, is that right? It's got to
yes.
Be yeah,
and we're everywhere. We have we're called CUNY Leads, linking employment education. So what we do is we work just specifically with the population, this population, and that's what we do. And our services are tutoring, accommodations, jobs, internships, everything.
Yeah, I'm loving this, and again, thank you for your comments, and I will save that question for later on. This is what students are doing after they actually graduate from college, and we'll look to your expertise there as well. Courtney, you brought up one thing in the question, one of the questions that you had volleyed over, that idea of persistence and success. What are the services that students can look to, and I'll look to anyone's comment on this, while they're undergraduates, and what are the services that students can look for that they can be assured that success that they might have. We keep referring to, or we've referred several times to, the different offices that we work in, but are students able to access those offices while they're in high school as they're going through the research and college fit process? I understand that they're likely going to, after they matriculate into a school, have access to all of you and all of your services, but can they talk to you during the admission process? I understand where CUNY is coming from this matter, but looking to you, Courtney, first.
Yeah, the Center for Psychiatric Rehabilitation has long been a resource for consultation. So I'd say, yeah, for anyone who's on the call and interested in maybe exploring this offline more deeply and kind of, in a more nuanced, individualized way, what feels like a big reality, I'd kind of defer to people who are more on the high school end than me, who kind of sits in the higher ed end, but it feels like having this navigation process of, again, starting with what is in place now that works and replicating it. That feels like an important acknowledgement.
Totally. Yeah.
What resources, who are the people? I think people, places, things, and activities. What are those 4 things that surround me, that help me stay well, that help me stay in school and persist and move forward? And finding that. And it, again, the Center for Psych Rehab works with students at CUNY and SUNY and Dean and all over the globe. So, we are a resource to lots of students. Some of what we offer helps students stay in school. Some of it is sort of like lots of students who access like accommodations, disability and access services. That's done ahead of time usually. Lots of our students know going in freshman year what their approved accommodations are. And some of our services could be put in place as they're needed. Kind of, again, like disability and access. I didn't know I needed that. Now I do. And you kind of jump in. Thanks for putting in the chat our website. I appreciate that, Nina. And I think some of them is around interpersonal skills building, executive functioning skills building. A lot of our work at the Center for Psych Rehab has very practical support, which is an important leg. There's access, the accommodations that are in place. Right. There might be treatment, in terms of access, treatment support, whether it's therapy or counseling that might be provided through university. And then there's a third leg, and it's really someone at the elbow with you, kind of helping you navigate, advocate, find the resources, make the connections, and respond to all of the transition challenges that are a reality. So our college coaching that we offer is one-on-one individualized work and support. That's a great resource at any stage, really, of any transition, someone to bounce ideas off of, all the way to our classes that we host, healthy relationships and collegiate resilience classes that help students, kind of maintain the roles that are important to them, whether it's peer or partner or, roommate relationships, and navigating those in a health promoting way. So I'll pass it on, but that's kind of like a little taste of the center and some transition planning ideas.
I love this. I am so ready to sign up, and I so appreciate those comments. Carol.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what Courtney's saying. If we put ourselves in the position of the high school student, one thing we know is all these colleges have invested differently in their support service. There's no template. It's not regulated. You go into, BU, it's going to look very different than University of Connecticut, that'll look different than Curry. So you need to know that they're going to be different, and those conversations can happen ahead of time. But the things that typically students are looking for, who need, let's put it this way, from the academic organizational side, is who's giving the services the colleges that put a heavy focus on peer mentors are usually not dealing with my students. My students don't want to be with peers. They typically, if they're going, if they need that level of extra support, want to be with specialists who are trained. Usually we're trying to find out during the interviews, when are they going to meet? Who are they meeting with? Is there an extra charge? Is there if you go to a place like LaSalle, they have, or Merrimack, they have these beautiful tiers where somebody can go in and get executive function, can get organizational help, can get help in reading comprehension, assistive technology. It's really well done, and the place is centered in the center of campus, so it has a proud feeling. It's not in a back alley. Other places, it's almost an afterthought, and there's no tiering of prestige. It has to do with how much the school has decided to invest.
Carol, I have to piggyback on all that you're saying because we're really working at it. I never knew that I would ever be advising in my role, advising and registering students. But students want to connect with someone. I hear you. They want to, now we started academic skills coaching. Who is going to be the person doing this academic skills coaching? So there's someone. So we have all these roles now. So who's going to be responsible for giving the academic, all these referrals, accommodations? So I hear what you're saying because students, even counseling, you know, I'm often told that we may have the skills, but we are not counselors. So who do I send to? Where do I send them to when they need counseling? And normally our role is we don't send them, we walk them, we take them there so that we make sure that they get what they need. They connect with someone. So what Carol is, I'm really agreeing with Carol here because now there's a connection. There is a relationship there. So when I send them, I'm just don't go to the counseling office. I'm walking that person to someone where there's an immediate connection and a relationship starts there. So the next time I don't have to do the walk because that person knows someone in that office.
Right. Gosh, I mean, I'm hearing this from all of your so many of your comments, that idea of building this connection and community so that we can serve the needs of, you know, that we as, let's say, students can serve our own needs by understanding those offices that or those people that we can build community with and be able to access their services and know those things well. Carol, I didn't miss your comment on, you know, some schools are simply better at it than others. And I love the example of being in the center of campus or out on, you know, some silo that students and their parents might not visit on a typical tour, virtual or otherwise. So I do understand that, and I think, you know, direction to folks that are attending, you know, looking for clear and good guidance on. And I'm seeing in some of the comments on the list, is there a list of schools that you would recommend in that regard? You know, we put up a book that we do at Princeton Review, but it's still 300 plus schools, all varying tiers of different support services, Carol, as you had mentioned at the beginning. But I'll look to all of our attendees, and as well as Joseph and Neelu, is there a way that we can find, like, put a finer tip on which schools are truly accommodating to our needs from a learning differences, learning disability perspective, or mental health services as well?
Oh.
Neelu, go ahead, and then Carol, we'll look to you. So Neelu, go ahead.
I mean, this is very analogous to my situation right now because I'm applying to law schools. And so, I mean, something that's just very realistic is like, I mean, I don't want to like open up the curtain, but it's like, I really think you need to take the initiative to contact these schools and ask these questions.
I'm hearing you.
Because I mean, everything said before, you come to the conclusion that schools are different. And because they're different, you're not going to know what's going to vary between them. And so reaching out to, at my school, it was called the Disabled Students Program. And so, you know, if I was a senior right now and I was contemplating colleges that or junior, whatever, contemplating colleges I'm interested in, I would jot a few down. I would make a Word document and, you know, make a table and then get the contact information respective of each school and reach out, or even do it on email so everything is printed and you don't have to have the conversation and try to recall everything that was said. I really think nothing's going to give you the answers you're looking for than a conversation.
Yeah, we hear you. You have to be an active part, and that makes complete sense. Carol, we'll look to you for comments.
There is a database that I just that I use all the time and I share. It's called College Support. You can look right on it.
Yeah.
You just type the school in. It'll give you the name of the head of the academic support side. Not so much, they do get into mental health, but this is usually for students that are on an IEP for learning or attentional disabilities. They go over 10 questions in methodical detail. What kind of assistive technology? Do you have support for students that are on the spectrum? What, how do the counselors meet? Is there an extra charge? They have the contact person's name. It is my go-to list. And there's a short, very inexpensive subscription fee to use it for a year, but it's well worth it. You can call up the person because they give you all the contact information for over 300 schools and get very specific information. And I think it's updated yearly.
Excellent. We so appreciate you putting it in the chat as well. Lynn and Carol, I'm just looking to Carol, you had mentioned a couple times additional fees that students and parents would likely incur. And I'm sorry, but I'm just ignorant of those fees and what the difference is for those schools that may charge and may not. And Lynn, I'm sorry, I'm just ignorant of the arch services that are at Dean, if there's an additional fee. So I'll look to your comments and guidance there.
Sure. So yes, there is an additional fee for the Arch Learning Program, and it starts out at $7,200 per year for a first-year student, and then it decreases as a student goes through the program.
Sure.
Because the level of support also decreases as they go through the program, because our goal is, to have independent learners, right?
Right.
So that being said, that encompasses a lot of additional services beyond the free services that are available at the college. So things like, tutoring services, the writing center, the math center, those things are obviously available to all students. Within the Arch learning community, that additional fee covers 3 hours of academic coaching, where a student will meet, with an academic coach, specific advising. Our advisors in the Arch learning community have a smaller caseload. They're not faculty advisors. That is their job. That's their staff. We do an orientation prior to school opening where we bring our Arch students to campus and do 3 full days of orientation. We do specific cohort courses for students in the Arch program, where we hire faculty and staff that are trained to work with students with learning differences, so that the delivery of the material is a little bit different. It's a little bit more geared toward their learning styles. So the content isn't changed, but the delivery of the material is changed up a little bit. There's some supplemental instructions, there's support labs, things like that.
Totally understand. I so appreciate that clarification and that idea of the modification that you were talking about before, but those students are able to receive the information as they, to best accommodate their learning difference. Totally understand. Carol, additional comment there, or anybody else on this before we move on? Joseph, you had an intriguing question. I want to make sure I get to you that you had volleyed over, but Carol, I'll look to you.
Of the 3 tiers of schools, if you think of the first one as a place that might give you some basic accommodations, and this is a generalization, you have to go deeper into it, like extra time, maybe downloading books. That's a group that you're not going to have any extra fees unless you've got an outside tutor. The 2-tier group, and these all have different names to them, but let's call it, they're getting more specific services where you're meeting one-on-one with somebody on staff. Typically, I've not found that the students that matriculate to these schools have to pay extra fees unless there's something very specific. Like I did have a student go to Northeastern who's visually impaired. And so there were certain sorts of things that were added on, but typically not. But a student going to a tier 3 school, just like Lynn said, Schools like Curry, Dean, Lynn in Boca Raton, which is a famous one for their services.
Yep.
As Lynn said, there will be extra fees. And that's really important to get into with the parents. The students looking at these schools are typically students that are interested in graduating from college, that certainly have some skills, but do need more direct support.
I understand. And I so appreciate the good counsel from all of you on this issue. Joseph, you had volleyed over a question on a couple days ago that I was just intrigued on. And as you were saying in your opening remarks, you're a recent UVA graduate, you're working full time, you sort of navigated that part of the career system, but you talked about being an ambitious student and how you can balance out ambition with the need of some, academic services or other services that you might have had at UVA or just other students as well. So just looking to you for how you were able to navigate that as a student and how you can counsel or, give some guidance to the folks that are in our classroom today.
That ends up being like a very deep question because I grew up in the Northern Virginia area. And sometimes the dictation around the area was like, either you go to, UVA, Virginia Tech, or else I don't know if you'll get a job. And that's very false. You can't think that way. And I know there's other people from other areas who are like, you should just get a college and then you'll get a job. And then maybe that's not necessarily true. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily happen. And then you get like this sort of odd balance. How much effort should I put in? That was at least my personal experience.
I think many of us had that same experience, and I suspect many of the attendees on our call. We all understand, and I do an exercise with my own students. I give a lot of lectures at high schools, and just thinking about where brand and perception of these schools fit in, and how do you justify, those 25 schools that are the most prestigious, let's say, against all of the 3,000 schools that are in the country, and that's why all of us are working in higher education. Like we understand that none of those 3,000 schools educate students poorly, right? I mean, but the challenge is, how do you justify those things, and how do you think broadly? Brand and perception has its place, but how do you think broadly about those things? And
personally, early on, what I did, and I felt like it worked for me, is I went like really aggressive. Called, at least in my full university, my first like year and a half. And kind of like waned off my second and third year, or more so when I was in my junior year of college. And that I felt like, because like I specialized and I found like my area of interest.
Yes.
That's like what I would encourage, and it can be hard for students who learning LDs or mental health. You can have this pressure on yourself and from others, but it's also important to keep keep yourself in mind when seeing the options that are available. That's very important. Do as many things as you can. Your first and second year of college is what I emphasize. See what's out there, and don't be afraid to fail, because this is college. This is the time, I think, to fail and to maybe explore your interests.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little bit more risky when you're outside of college, but I encourage people to find their area of interest.
Good wisdom, Joseph. We're so lucky to have Neelu and Joseph shared their wisdom, and not being afraid to transfer and not being afraid to get it wrong. Like, what an interesting, oddly like stigmatized experience to transfer schools. But sometimes the negative reality is we get somewhere and maybe we had the database drill down what was a great program for us. And we were thoughtful about the markers of what a campus that promotes positive mental health and is well supported, those markers, the JED Foundation, the SEAL, and that maybe an active minds body of students promoting mental health and programming. We're looking for these markers. But maybe the vibe is off of the school, or maybe that niche program, or our hearts change, or something else comes up for us, and I think it is constantly a balance between our needs and our values. Our values, are pretty consistent, maybe, but maybe they change. maybe I value something that's far from home, but I also value family. And if something calls me closer to home and I need to be closer to home, letting that be an indicator, a real marker of what is a good, not the best school, but the right school for me, then kind of thinking about sort of hierarchy but we might value prestige, and that might be part of our reality and experience as well. But our, kind of our balancing our needs and our values, and knowing, as other guests, other panelists were talking about programs and supports. Something that I'm really proud to say is that the Center for Psych Rehab that offers one-to-one college coaching for students, again, all over the globe. I'm happy to say, before the pandemic, we're offering live and interactive coaching virtually and through online platforms, is something that is a fee-for-service program that we also, I'd like to say in the same breath, have never let money be a barrier to. So we have a robust development team and financial assistance available, because it really is, it's quite important when we think about the transition. I'm sure any family members or parents on the call are thinking the same thing. It's quite nice to have someone in the realm of higher ed being the support and at the elbow. And that way family members and parents can hold that role and not tiptoe into the role of college coach saying, did you do that assignment? When's that due? Did you know, and checking in, but someone else there as a point person. And to that end, the college coaching program is a fee for service. The program that is for students who have an interruption to college, one of the only programs in the country, and as far as I know, the only college campus-based program. We call it Nateo. It's a Latin word. It means to thrive. This is for college students who maybe chose the right school. Maybe they landed right where they're meant to be and want to be, right, but the timing isn't right. And you step aside and take a health promoting leave for lots of reasons: finances, family, your own mental health, care, to work, a calling, whatever it might be. And this program, Nateo, was also a fee-for-service program with financial assistance available. We've never had money be a barrier, and that can be important to have something of value and import and meaning to do during a leave of absence. Something that is an informed decision. Right. And like I said, health promoting option for students to have.
So past summer, I took on 22 students to work with summer youth. And I took on, they were high school students who were getting ready for college. And their role was to find the college that best suits them based on their needs, their understanding of what their disabilities are. And I can tell you, they researched 3 colleges, they're 3 top colleges, and they went from Florida, they went all over. And 6 weeks of research, I think I had about 18 of the 22 decided to choose colleges that were closer to home. I don't know if it's a pandemic or what. They were set on going away before they did this summer program. And after the research, they decided that they wanted to be closer to home. Family was important to them. Now, they didn't necessarily want to stay at home, but they wanted colleges that were closer to home. I found that to be very interesting.
Yeah, and
so interesting.
It totally is, and I can just lend some data that we've been collecting at Princeton Review now for several years, but that idea of distance from home and of course finding fit and what those schools are. Pre-pandemic, so 2019-ish, most students were staying within a 3-hour driving distance from their home, or about 180 miles. But as a result of COVID and its impact, students are staying much closer to home. One, whether it's, as Dr. Jones, as you were saying, as that idea of staying closer to family, or Courtney, as you're saying, just reevaluating what's the right fit for me based on any number of factors. But there's a financial factor as well, which we can't deny, based on COVID. And this is something that I talk about with my students all the time. That distance is shrinking for both familiar reasons as well as financial reasons. And I'm so heartened to hear, that money shouldn't be an obstacle for any of or for many of these programs. Courtney, certainly, certainly your program, and I think that's going to be, great solace to lots of the folks listening on the call today as well. Yeah, good stuff, good stuff. Other comments on this, and I should just note out to our audience. I know we've gotten a couple of questions in, but folks, please don't hesitate to volley questions my way. And I'm just looking here. I'm going to look to those questions if they come in. But again, don't feel like you're interrupting the flow of the conversation if that stuff comes along. I just looked to Neelu. You had noted a couple of questions. And this was, I thought, so endearing when you had sent over these questions, which you volleyed several over, thinking about students that are questioning their abilities when they're in high school to transition successfully to college, both academically and socially. And we're looking for your comments there, personal opinion, and how you were able to succeed. But then looking for the rest of the panelists to weigh in. So students that might be questioning their abilities academically and socially, and that was your question, and I think it's so spot on. So looking for your guidance.
Yeah, so this is like, yeah, this is emotional for me because it's like,
it's a big one. It's a big one,
yeah.
totally. And I so appreciated you volleying it over because it is personal. Yeah.
I don't know if it's who I am. I don't know if it's my ADHD. I don't know if it's both, but I just have I have a mindset that is very dependent on manifestation. And even when I wasn't gathering accomplishments or achievements, I did believe like I could and I would. And I think it's just, I progressed with my age. I'm 27 right now, but things just started, life gets a little harder when you have to interact with different kinds of people and different environments, different challenges. Just getting older, things change. Like, that's the one guarantee. Things will always change. And I think the challenges that came into my life kind of put my back up against the wall and made me consider, like, I have two options. I can, try to figure out this problem. I mean, sometimes there's more than two options, but I can try to figure out this problem, or I can just not. Like, I can or I can't. Like, you will or you won't. You do or you don't. And so I think that manifestation mindset that I have did put pressure on myself to bring those visions to life. And I'm happy they did, because I am accomplishing things I did believe as a child I could. But I know everyone's different. I know people have trauma. I know people, especially if they don't have a solid support group, it's harder to sometimes believe in yourself. But if there's one thing that I think everyone who's ever achieved something has in common, is that they believed, even if they didn't believe, like they didn't, they were so scared, like, it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. Then maybe it's not the right thing. Maybe you're forcing something that isn't correct for you, but you will surprise yourself and everyone around you. You will.
Gosh, I love it. Yes.
It didn't happen for me until I went to community college for 4 years, and I took it seriously in the beginning, and then I got a little comfortable, and then I actually lost my medication for a while. For 18 months, I didn't have my Adderall, and yeah, my grades went from A's to C's, and then it took some more hard work to bring them back up. But I think having ADHD also gives you, like Joseph said, some ambition. Mm-hmm. And even like the impulsivity and the hyperactivity, it's like, it can work to your advantage. Don't count the characteristics of your condition as negatives, because when there's a room full of quiet people, it takes the person who has the guts to ask a question to get the dialogue going.
I want to add on to Neelu's comment really, really quickly, is that it's a big, big thing to adult. For those of you, especially, even if you're just going to community college, whatever your next step is after high school, you have to remember you're gaining a little bit more independence after that. And that's, to someone, especially me with ADHD, that's like a whole other like 6th credit class. Like, you know, doing your own laundry, cooking for yourself. These are things you have to keep in mind. And maybe like, I wish I told my younger self, start practicing, because these are things that can eat out slowly from your other responsibilities and prevent you from succeeding. If maybe, like, you know, you're more mindful of your surroundings and your environment, of what it takes to, you know, take care of all these responsibilities.
I mean, I think we're just hearing and feeling that we know both of you so much better from your comments here. And Neelu, the idea of, you know, coming to the college table, let's say, and not perceiving a learning difference as something other than an advantage, and I will never forget that comment. So I appreciate that. And again, both of you, Joseph and Neelu, as you're saying, using those differences to be able to succeed academically and otherwise. And the bravery comment, Neelu, that you said, I will not forget that either. And I suspect many of our, certainly our panelists, but our attendees as well. Totally love these things. Folks, I'll look to you if there's any comments on that. If not, I know we have a couple of questions in the queue. And we're about, I think we have 15 minutes, we have 14 minutes left. So. If not, then we'll just move on. But again, applause to both of you, and again, I'm so grateful for everybody's comments. There was one, Courtney. This is to you for the centers program at BU. Understanding that those programs are for college students, and then looking to the larger panel as well. Are there similar programs for high school students or pre-college students that might be similar to the center program that Courtney, you've been highlighting throughout?
That's a great question. We do actually, we've taken some of what we've learned, and much of our work is evaluated. Most or all of our work actually is evaluated. We, you know, program evaluations of the leave of absence program in particular. And we've adapted it to high school settings. We've adapted it, not that the conversation is all that different, but it does matter that you're having it perhaps with like peers who are in the same stage of life a little, you know? So in terms of our, you know, collegiate resilience programming and healthy relationships programming, we're great partners and have brought programming to high schools in one-shot, you know, webinars or workshops in person or online, as well as sort of longer term support mechanisms for different high schools. So if anyone on the call is interested in that, that's something we do and explore. We're also really good at sharing and like to think that if we've found something that seems to be working, we don't want anyone, certainly the busy people who work in high schools and in transition planning, to have to reinvent the wheel. So we're good at sharing and disseminating what we do. There was also a question that was about just some kind of questionnaire or resource for evaluating interests, values, and needs. And I bet someone on here knows of some tool or tools that they could share. But I have to say, I'm going back to Neelu's idea of this concept of picking up the phone and having the conversation. I would invite a conversation that personal around preferences, interests, values, and needs to happen with someone who you trust, you know, to happen with someone who can push back on it and say, I know you like being in a big city, but I also know that you like quiet and you like something a little more controlled. So you're applying to all these schools in New York City, and I'm wondering, you know, what it might do for you to be there and your mental health and be away from family, and someone who can maybe push back and knows you a little bit more deeply. But in terms of more specific tools or resources, I bet someone else has a good idea. So I'll stop there.
Excellent. folks, any other resource, but to Courtney, to your point, I totally, I love it. The idea of saying to a student, you know, I see you and I hear you. The idea of going to a trusted person or a friend or family member that says, you know, hey, you know, I know you well and you know yourself well, and just pushing back and having that conversation of substance around fit. And actually, this is from Heather in the comments as well, talking about, you know, is there a resource, but the idea of finding fit, it's the sense of her question is the idea of fit and making sure we're being honest in the conversation that we're having with ourselves and with our community to figure out those details of fit.
So Rob, you know,
yes,
I can't help but to go back to how we're being taught. We're being taught mostly online now. We're not doing face-to-face. And so many students that I have dealt with this year decided that they could not attend because they could not manage asynchronous work, that setting where they're so used to having someone in their face, and now they have to have this independence of doing this thing by myself. It has caused a lot of added pressure on them because now in an environment where they could succeed, they now find themselves failing because it's a new way of learning and they can't manage this new way of learning. So we work as hard as we can to get them through it with the tutoring. But the reality is, we don't know how long this is going to go on for. You know, is next year, students are coming out of high school now, coming into college, and they're maybe having face-to-face in high school, and now they have to enter college, and it's going to be a different way of learning. How are we prepared for these students who are only used to learning this way? And now this is also a new way of learning. And I have just found that a lot of my students had to take the semester off because they couldn't manage. A lot of them had to get extra counseling because they were suffering. Their mental health was deteriorating. A lot of them saying college is not for me. They came with the idea that college was for them, but they're leaving now after one semester saying college is not for me.
I mean, it is the Wild West, as you are noting, out there of changing environments, from, you know, hybrid learning to what's going to happen in the future. You know, is there, you know, how do we accommodate students that over the last now almost 2 years of time are used to one way of learning, and how are we going to accommodate them on the college side of the fence? It is the $1 million question. I'm going to look to the crowd because I don't know the answer yet, but I mean,
and we have to pay attention. I heard Courtney say, like, you have to know. So do you want to be in the big city? Do you want to take the Long Island Railroad or the Metro North to get on the subway to get to school? By the time you get there, you're totally exhausted.
Yeah.
All you want to do is sleep. So, you know, these are things that we have to talk about from the high school level or even when they're in college, because I know navigating the Long Island Railroad or the Metro North to the subway to get to school, you're done. You're toast.
I
By
know,
the time you're
it's
ready
hard.
for a class. Yes.
It's certainly hard. I know. Neelu, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, just to add on to that, and it references something that Joseph brought up earlier too, like adulting, laundry, food, self-care, prioritizing your needs and duties. One thing with picking a school is, are you going to have a car? How hard is it going to be for you to go get groceries? How hard is it going to be for you to go back home? If you do adjust to your environment, like as human beings, and as I think Darwin would say, you adapt to your environment. But and the answers to these questions don't have to necessarily be the reason why you choose that school. You can just even feel like, you know, on paper, that's the wrong school, but I really like it. You know, not everything's going to be so formal. I really do believe, and I hope this is good to say, I really do believe that a true athlete doesn't need a gym and a true student doesn't need a library. And but to that, there are different types of students and there are different types of athletes. You know, a ballerina is an athlete just as much as a linebacker is. So it's hard to say don't feel pressured to fit in the box, but be proud that you don't fit into the box.
More wisdom from Neelu. I'm writing it down. I'm going to give you attribution. Carol, I'm looking at you, my friend.
I know we talked, you know, when we were all getting together on this, on how do we know when someone is ready for college? And I know our time is limited, but I just, you know, I know we talked about some of the things that counselors will look at, you know, either the college counselors, whatever, they're trying to assess certain skills. And I just, you know, quickly have this slide here, which has numerous things, but what this college readiness skills are really the skills you need to learn, which is sort of the price of admission to being a responsible adult. It's not some mysterious thing just for college. And when a student, and we've got a lot of them now really struggling at the high school level, some of them have lost a year, the questions you're asking, and I can just put this into the chat, is basic things that are needed in this new environment. Can you manage time? How are you handling responsibility? How are you communicating? Is everything somebody needs as they're heading into the work world, or a place outside of a home, or a place where there's a lot of adult supervision? And certainly if you're looking at a student, the student is 16, 17, or 18, and you're trying to figure out, do they have those basic skills? They don't have to be mastered, or a real interest in making note of how to get better at it. And, you know, again, with COVID, and I know Dr. Jones really hit upon this, some of these students have lost a year on that.
Yeah.
But it's really, we don't even look at it as, oh, this is for college. This is actually just to say, are you responsible to become an adult? But critical if you're going to go away to school, for sure.
I so appreciate you putting up those things. And yeah, and Carol, if you could put it into the chat, that I know that list is going to be incredibly valuable. And folks, we only have a couple of minutes left. And again, Neelu and Joseph, I see that you shared your contact information. Some folks were asking for your one-on-one. Appreciate, you know, that as well. Folks, any last comments that anybody wants to volley out here? Again, this is going to be recorded. All of our contact information is right throughout this deck. Of course, Paul and Nina have, you know, can contact us as well. But looking forward to it. Parting words from any guests, panelists?
I'd like to
That's
throw
an
in
unfair
something
question.
that
Okay,
sort
I'm
of
sorry.
feels
Thank
like
you.
it's being echoed throughout, is that this is, I feel like many students arrive to college having like sprinted there, you know, it's like a race, and you're there and you're kind of maybe tired already, like you've already taken the trains Suzanne was talking about. It's just another step. There's so many steps, and take it at your own pace. You know, we use that acronym a lot, to take things at your own pace, and finding the people and the points of access, to find, you know, the academic support and the care, whatever care means to you, and the educational resources and engagement that really make every step meaningful. You know, it's really just not a race. I know it feels like that. So anyone who's on the call as a student, congratulations, good luck, and take it at your own pace.
I love that comment, Courtney, and that idea of, yes, it feels like a sprint to get to this part in the process. And once you're admitted, you know, then what? But right, taking your time. We've heard that from so many comments, and just the support that is out there from each of your centers and each of the resources that we're talking about tonight. Folks, we're at 8:45. I am so grateful for your time. Folks in the audience, thank you so much. Paul, Nina, we couldn't be more, I think, just pleased that we were able to have this conversation, and looking forward to the comments. As Paul has said, there's going to be an exit survey. Please do give us comments so that we can continue to improve for next year's event. But then we'll just be signing off for tonight. So be well and good luck.